Hello, everyone. So glad to have you here. Welcome as people are trickling in. It's wonderful to see so many of you wanting to join this conversation and this workshop. And while people are finding their way, maybe pouring another cup of coffee, I would love to hear where you're tuning in from. I see some people in the chat on LinkedIn, but let's drop the place of where you're tuning in from so we can light up the map a little bit. And while you do that, I want to start with a story that hit the entertainment world like a rogue spotlight this week. And what's happened is but before I do that, maybe I should just share screen just so you know what I'm talking about. So let's add Miss Tilly to the stage. So what's happened this past week, an AI actress named Tilly Norwood, built by Elaine van der Velden and her studio Zykoya, went viral almost overnight. Not because she fooled anyone. She's an AI actress, right? Not because she was pretending to be human either. Not because she was created intentionally as the first cast member in a brand new fictional universe, a digital performer with a full creativity behind her. The internet went a little viral because it turned this one character into a global debate. Suddenly, Tilly wasn't just a project. She became the symbol, a flashing neon sign that storytelling is evolving, whether we're ready or not for it. What fascinating me wasn't the tag, it was the appetite. Audiences leaning in, creators experimenting, studios imagining either this entire Tillyverses without the constraints of budgets, timelines, physical production. It's basically very much a physical preview of what happens when creativity stops waiting for permission. At the same time, obviously, the human layer is real. Think craft, identity, livelihood, right? So these conversations are the conversations that I'm interested in because they do deserve to air. But history is pretty consistent. When a new creative medium shows up, the people who get curious early are the ones who shape the rules, not the ones reacting to them later. Which brings me to today. The reason why I wanted to do this workshop because I want you to be ahead. And as we're diving in, let's start with the warm-up question and very much in tune with what we're going to work on today. If you could hand off one task to an AI employee tomorrow, what's the first job you'd give them? Think about it for a minute, but then I want to see it in the chat. I want to see what you are thinking about. What's that one job that you would want to unload to an AI assistant? Because that's exactly what we are going to do today. We're not just talking about theory. I'm not interested in AI hype. I want to show you how to build your first AI agent. And obviously, I'm going to use my specific scenario as I'm doing this. But the workflow, the principles, the steps still apply. So if you are thinking to apply all of this to your own scenario, you can do so. We want to put this tool to work. And in a moment, I'll show you how I built mine. I built several. For the purpose of this workshop, I'm just going to highlight one or maybe two. And also, why does this workflow matters and how can you adapt it then to your world immediately? So that's the goal today. And while you're dropping in the chat, if you could hand off one task to an AI employee tomorrow, what's the first job you would give them? Let's see, what do I hear in the chat? Scan a website and collect specific info and put it on a presentation slide. That's a very easy task, by the way. I don't know who's behind Smart Specials. If you have a name, please introduce yourself. David. Okay, there you go. David, CEO of Smart Specials. Hi. Calling in from Florida. I love it. I'm in Boise right now, and it's very windy and gloomy. I bet it's better looking in Florida. Archer says, sending LinkedIn connections through Sales Navigator. I'll be curious about that use case scenario only because LinkedIn is an interesting platform, especially when it comes to their Sales Navigator to try to API into. It has not been very friendly to some of my attempts, but if anybody has done it successfully, I would actually want to have a chat with you. So let's get us started. A little bit of background on me. I'm Anca Platon Trifan. I'm a globally recognized speaker, AV production expert of 20-something years, AI strategist, and a fit for events advocate. And the whole purpose for my being is to empower event professionals, business leaders, and tech teams to integrate AI technology and high performance fitness and wellness into impactful events and organizational success. On LinkedIn, if you follow me, I post a lot about AI and technology integration in events and business operations. The Fit for Events framework is all about high performance strategies for event professionals. And then I also post about practical case studies and success stories from live events, AI adoption, small businesses, applications, and case studies, as I said. And if we're here, who I want to reach is more event professionals, business leaders, and executives interested in leveraging technology and the Fit for Events framework for organizational performance, event teams and agencies that are looking for practical AI integration and automation strategies, and any wellness-focused professional that is aiming to optimize performance in high-pressure industries. Aside from that, I host Events Demystified podcast, one of the top 5 podcasts in event technology and AI. I'm a competitive bodybuilding athlete, and the most important thing that I've learned from that one journey is that consistency and discipline beat motivation every single time. And that applies directly to AI because we're here to build systems that make life easier, not just noisier. All right, so as we're thinking about this one agent, I want to give you a bit of the background, the context. And I want to ask you a question if you're in the chat. How many of you have spoken at an event before? Some of you might be professional speakers, some of you might be wannabe speakers, and some of you just have to do it because maybe your company is sending you to, or maybe it's good for the brand. Whatever reason it is, let's be honest. When you think about the old workflow for speakers, it's pretty painful. As a speaker, I can tell you that I've done all of those things many times over for the last few years, and it doesn't make it any easier. It's still time consuming. It's still painful. You chase all PDFs or of past talks, past outlines. You rewrite the same pitch a dozen times. You dig through outdated folders. You manually create and recreate work that shouldn't need recreating. Nothing about this process is efficient or scalable. Now, the agent that I'm showing you today replaces that entire cycle. It will pull your past outlines from Google Drive. Personally, I use Google Drive, Google Workspaces, but say if you're under Microsoft SharePoint, it could integrate into your SharePoint and pull it from there. It will learn your voice. It will read a new call for paper, and then it will draft a pitch for you and save it into your database. You don't have to go hunting for files, rewriting the same thing, or copy pasting this insane marathon just to make sure that you make the deadline. And I think the most important part of this is that once you understand this pattern, then you can use it to automate any repetitive workflow in your use case, in your business, and whatever scenario that you find yourself in. So this personally matters to me for three reasons. First, it frees me from repetitive tasks, right? Secondly, it keeps my voice consistent across the board. And then thirdly, it keeps my pipeline organized without a bunch of manual tracking. And I have done the manual tracking. In a minute, I'll show you my Notion database where I keep track of everything. And for the last few years, I've done that manually, line by line by line, updating those databases. So putting together this new workflow, it just makes it so much faster and cleaner and way more effective. So before I start showing you the steps and what we're doing, I want to highlight the structure behind what we're building. This is a small Flask app that sits at the center. On one side, it connects to Google Drive. Again, it can connect to other places, other sources, where it uses that source to ingest your past talks, right? Like if you're saving them in a nice folder somewhere in Google Drive, lost among the other Google Drive folders, it can go locate it and find it for you. And then I like to use Claude Code because that is what I use for pitch generation. And then the other side is Notion, or maybe you have a Google spreadsheet, or you have Microsoft Excel, or whatever, where you store or you want to store the final output. And all of this has to be connected through a repository because that's what's holding the code. If you want to make changes to this agent, you have to have a place, a library, where you have had all of this stored so that you can go back to, or have the agent go back to easily and reference what is done in the past and what are some of the things that you want to change, what is needed for a different type of integration. All of that has to live into a repository. GitHub is a great option for that. It's free, and we will start with that when we start going step by step. All of these pieces are working together to then automate a workflow that I personally been doing manually for years. So that's why when I was thinking about my workflows, what I can automate, this was the most painful one that I wanted to get rid of. Hence why I started with it first. Okay, so this is also the folder structure that Claude will generate for us. Now, I didn't write any of this by hand, but I did help Claude fill in some of the blanks. What Claude does, it will build the ingestion script, the pitch generator, the database writers, the web interface, the requirements, all of it. My job is to give Claude the right instructions and environment, and then Claude basically handles the scaffolding. So the purpose of today is walk you step by step behind the build. Obviously, I've already built the agent. It's already working, but I want to take you behind how I build it so that you can recreate those steps yourselves. So you can apply it to your own case scenario, and then you'll see the structure under the hood. So then those concepts actually stick and you understand what each part does. Does this sound good? Okay, if you're still with me and it sounds good, then we're gonna get going. So what we are using today as far as tools in order to build and manage this agent, I've mentioned a few already. Claude Code. You can use either the desktop version of Claude Code, or you can use it in your terminal. I use both, and I'll show you both, but personally, I like to use Claude Code installed on my machine in the terminal. I find it easier to navigate it that way. I also find it more responsive. I'm curious from any of you that have used Claude Code desktop, if you find it that sometimes it can be a little slow, or it can just keep it can iterate a bunch of times without reason, and that kind of annoys me because I'm very time efficient, and if it doesn't give me what I want, I can get frustrated, and I tell it that I am. So this is basically your AI development environment, right? Then GitHub is your repo for file storage and version control. It's important to have version control of all the changes you're making. Google Drive API service account for accessing your talks from Google Drive. That has to be created. Otherwise, Google is not just going to open the door for you to go and search through your files. That is a good thing because from a security and privacy point of view, you want to have that intentionally created for a purpose. And then Notion, personally, because I do use Notion quite a bit as my CRM, my database, my livelihood, basically. And then it's either Notion or Google Sheets, right, for logging pitches or whatever the outcome of your searches is. And then the app, the Flask app that I'm using, is basically for interaction and workflow triggering. Now, you can do without an app. And this is where I want to highlight how, you have agent mode in ChatGPT Pro, right? And there's other options that you could use the agent to build different integrations for you. And I do have that for a few other case scenarios that I use the agent, but I really prefer when I create a through and through AI agent to have not just the purpose for it, not just the mechanics, but also the interface, the UI interface. So that's why for me, I like to build it from A to Z. And then I have this nice interface that I can basically work with. So what we need for the AI build, as I mentioned, we're going to have to generate a JSON file. We're going to have to generate the integration app within Notion. We're going to have to share the Drive folders. We're going to need an Anthropic API key. So in order to use Claude Code, you have to have an API key into your Pro account because you're using tokens to generate this agent build. And then GitHub repo creation, and then Cloud Desktop installed, or if you work like me in the terminal, you have to install it in your terminal. So that takes us to step one, right? This is where you are giving Claude a workspace. I created a GitHub repo called Mini Speaker Agent, and we're gonna switch now to that so that I show you what that looks like. So when I gave this workshop, when I presented live, it was in a different instance, and I was working with a production team that was not able to make the switching of windows smooth. So I felt like I left out a lot of important steps. And that's why I'm basically redoing that workshop right now live for anyone that either missed it the first time or was not able to make it. So this is where I keep all my repos. This is basically the GitHub that I said. You can easily start a brand new account. You basically would have an account that stores your all your projects. So this is the one that I pinned for this purpose. And in order to start a new project, basically you just go to new repo, and you're going to give it a name. Like I said, for this purpose, I gave mine like Mini Speaker Agent. Most likely, because this is for you, it's going to be private. So I mean, unless you want to share it for some reason. It doesn't necessarily have to start with a template, but if you wanted to, you could. I have a couple of templates I work with. You want to add a README file because that's where all the descriptions will live. And then a license. You don't need a license for this particular repo unless it's an app that you will market outside of your own repo. So if it's private and nobody will have access to it, you don't have to worry about this. But there's a few different licenses, and we're not going to get into this just because they all have different reasons to exist and rules around them. That's probably a different workshop altogether. But that's the easy first step that you need to do. So once you have it, then you can go to Claude Code. And this is where, when I say that I go to Claude Code, the desktop, and I have a few other projects that I'm working on. And as you can see, obviously my agent has been created. It has quite a bit of code here, but you can either do it here. So when you start working with Claude Code, then you can reference the repo that you will work in. So everything that happens on the desktop, every changes that you're making through Claude Code, then it will be registered in your repo, all the versioning that I mentioned. For that, you would want to install GitHub. You would basically pull it from where it is, right? So I already have it selected. You can even have an environment created for it. And from there, you just everything that you do lives there. Now, the same thing can happen if you installed, for example, Claude Code in the terminal. And on this right-hand side is in the terminal. So as you can see, Claude Code has already been installed in the terminal. Obviously, I've gone through quite a few of conversations and changes. And in the making of this agent, we know it's working. But those are the two options as far as this build goes. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to give you a third option, which is not in my slides, that you cannot build this in Gemini. And you can easily do that in AI Studio in Google. You still need an API integration that you're going to have to set up. But the same thing, like, for example, I can save it into my repo. I can give it a description, whatever. This is a task for a different agent, for a different application. But it's very much a similar setup where on the left-hand side, you work with Gemini to build the agent. And then on the right-hand side, you see the outcome. Now here in this other situation, Claude Code, because that's what we're focusing on currently, you're going to see the outcome of what's been built on the left-hand side. That's what it looks like. And most likely I'm going to be working in the terminal to make changes to it. So those are the two most important steps that you need in order to get yourself set up. Once you have your GitHub repo, then you can go to Claude Code or have it installed in the terminal, and then you can paste the PRD into the window here, in the chat window. Now, what is a PRD? You should always have a document that stores the description of the agent, the intent behind the agent, instructions of what it does, what it can do. And let me see, I think my PRD for this particular one, it's saved. It's saved here, and actually I will give you access to this. So all you have to do is get the slides, and I'll show you when and how. But this is the PRD document that it has an overview, it has objectives, what's supposed to do, and then also some technical requirements, some programming, project structure, the required integrations. So you're like, well, how do I know how to build this? Well, that's where Claude or ChatGPT can be super useful, because mostly what you're going to want to do is build this one part. I have the description and I have the objective. And then next, it's going to help you generate the rest of it. What is it required for this integration and that integration, and what is required for this workflow to work, right? So that's where this document is kind of like the map for the agent of how is it going to work, and what is the success criteria for the agent when it is successfully built. How do you determine that it's actually been done well? Okay, so that was our first step, prepare the workshop, right? Now, in step 2, we're going to have to build a destination into either Notion or Google Drive. We're going to start with Notion because that's where I personally store my databases of all my past speaking. I have several databases that I'm going to show you how I normally organize my stuff. But technically speaking, it would be a new page or a database in Notion that you can call it speaking pitches, and it'll be a table, right? I will have the event name, it will have the pitch title, the content, the status, the link to the CFP, call for papers, a date, right? And mine, the way I've built mine is this whole database that again, I've been nurturing for quite a bit, and it has its own page on Notion. But then, as you can see, it would have multiple databases. One is the speaking that is booked, and I do keep track of a lot of that. The speaking that I pitched, and then the upcoming call for papers. This is where the agent will come into play to generate a lot of this. And then past, from year past, let's see, guest on other podcasts, keep track of that as well. Upcoming call for papers. This is actually where we're going to show you how it's the agent has been doing the work, but it's not just going to go and send out the CFP. It's going to need some human click through to verify that all that content is right. So it's just going to go rogue on you. And the next thing you know, you pitched to all these conferences on topics and sessions that you don't even have any tangent to. So that's what you want to have. Now you might be someone like, oh my gosh, I do not keep such a organized database for myself, and everything that I do lives somewhere, everywhere, like I said, with the old workflow everywhere, right? I would start with a blank database in that case. And this is the model of what that might look like, right? I would build this as your blank database because you still want to be able to have some kind of organization for yourself. But even if you don't plan to use Notion, this can be anything else. It could be Airtable. It could be, like I said, a spreadsheet. It could be SharePoint, whatever. But that's kind of like the necessary step, the necessary, I would say, inventory of past talks that's needed. And I'll also show you the Google Drive version when we go to that integration. Okay, so once we did that, then we're going to want to connect Notion to the agent. So how we do that is we're going to have to allow the agent to write into the database. The agent doesn't have access to it, and it won't have access to it until you create this integration. You're going to have a secret code of this integration that you're going to share with the agent. You're not going to share that with the world. But then basically you're sharing the database, and then you can grab the database ID. And those will be values that you need to save somewhere because will be needed in another step, which is basically populating your environment file, the NV file. So going back to my Notion database, let's not skip here. Okay, it looks like what I'm doing is jumping. Okay. Going back to the database, the way you want to get that step done is you would go to Notion integrations and you would start a brand new integration. Now, I already have that created for me. It's called AI Speaker Bot, and you have to give it capabilities, right? Read, update, insert, whatever, and then save it. I even like to give it a bit of a thumbnail image so I know what I'm working with. I have a few different integrations created for different agents doing different things, but that's the place where you would go to generate this brand new integration into your database. And then when you go back to your Notion page, then you want to go to the connections and you want to have that page connected to that particular integration, to that bot, right? So I have 3 different integrations that are working on this page. They're all doing different things, different agents doing different things. But for the purpose of this, it's the basically speaker bot that I've created to integrate with this so that it gives the agent what it needs to read the database, to edit the database, to add things into the database, right? Like when it comes to displays of adding new call for papers, it has to be able to create this by itself. Like this is something that I have not created myself. This is something that the agent has created. So that's what it needs to do. And I think I kind of kicked myself out of my slides, so I have to go back to my slides. Okay. All right, give me a second. I love it when those things happen live and you just scroll the wrong way. While I'm getting back to my step here, I'm curious, how are you guys doing in the chat? Is this a lot? At any point you want me to slow down, let me know. I have my chat on this left-hand side so I can see it. Okay. All right, so we were in connect Notion to your agent. We have shared the database to the integration. We got that database ID where you would get that from. Hold on, I don't like how this looks. Make sure that it looks full screen. Okay, doesn't look full screen, which is annoying, but it's fine. We'll have to run with it. Here, when you go to this new database, basically the ID are those letters over there that you're going to want to put it into that field here in the integration when you create it, the workspace. This is where you drop that. And I mean, the workspace is my Notion, but it's going to tell you, it's going to ask you for things. And one of those things would be that particular ID, database ID. Okay. Let's move on to our next step. And I need to get a little bit of water here. Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that. Thank you for the comment in the chat. All right, so let's look at Google Cloud. A lot of people catch their ears in Google Cloud when they're trying to set up integrations. It's not complicated, but you do have to follow a very specific set of steps to get you to where you need to be. Google Cloud, the console itself has a lot of options. And if you don't know where you need to start or what you need to do, you can easily get lost in there. And I know that for a fact because I've done it before. I've created different agents that were doing, like, for example, like 2 years ago when I created my first custom GPT for my podcast, it needed to connect to Google Cloud to pull all the intake forms from Google, as well as generate new scripts and outlines, and then store them in Google in the Drive. And when I needed to go through this step, it was a little, it was tricky at first, but once you do it once, you learn, and then it's easier, right? So what you do in here, you basically need to create a new project. You can name it whatever you want. And then you would have to enable the Google Drive API, because this will allow the agent to pull directly from your Drive. So we're going to do that. And I'm not going to go step by step into it just because I've already created that integration. But basically, you are in Google Cloud here. I already have my project name, right? It's an AI speaker agent. But if you were to start from the desktop, the dashboard, this is where you would want to be in to create your brand new speaker agent. And then you're going to want to give it access. So like I have a few different things going on here. I'm going to select mine. I'm not going to create a brand new one. You can easily do that. But again, I don't have to because I already have one created. And then once I'm here in it, we're going to follow a few things. And I want to go to the dashboard for this particular API project integration. And the most important thing is you have to go to API services to enable it. When you first start, you're not going to have it enabled. So you're going to want to enable it. And then when you do that, there's a few different things that you can search for, but this is where it's important to search for Google API, Drive API, the library itself, in order to enable just that, right? So this has already been done. We already have it enabled, and we don't have to do it again, but that's one of the steps. Then the next step here is we will need to create the agent's service account and key. So let me make sure that I go to that page really quick. And this will give you step-by-step of how to do that, how you have to navigate from API and services to create credential to the service account. You're going to name your speaker agent. You're going to click create. And I mean, step by step, it's so obvious and so easy to follow that you're not going to end up in the wrong place, and you're not going to end up in generating some kind of a API key that is not relevant to what you're looking for, right? So once you have your Google Drive API key, once you have your Notion API key, then we are ready to move into our next phase. And let's see, make sure I'm not stepping. One other step, actually, it's very important here. I almost forgot about it, but it's so important because a lot of people, they kind of miss this step, and I've missed it in the past. But once you have your agent created and its identity created, you need to give it the editor rights in Google. So you would copy that agent address, and then you go and share it with the folder where you hold and host your outlines, or where you host any of the notes about speaking that you've done in the past, or maybe information about your event, or maybe who knows, whatever the database is for the purpose of this agent, so that it has the address, right? So you want to then share that and make sure that it's got the viewer permission to be able to see it. I don't think it needs to edit it. I mean, you can give it editor mode, but it's not going to edit anything. It's just going to want to be able to see what you're doing. Okay. So we've done that. We've set up the credentials with, we have credentials set up here. I have them both created for web and desktop. We went through the authorization screen and everything that we needed basically is done here in this dashboard. Next is when the fun starts. But before we get to the fun part, this is how you can get all the instructions, step-by-step instructions, as well as the slides. I also have a few bonus things for you that I want you to have access to. And I'm going to drop this in the chat so that if you don't have a way to read a QR code, you can just press on the link. What's cool about StreamYard is actually they introduced this new QR code widget that you can put on top of the screen, which I thought was kind of cool. StreamYard is being actually hard at work with a lot of features lately, and that's a good thing, because for a while, and I mean a couple of years, they were doing nothing. And I'm like, how are you using my monthly fee? Because I don't see any new features coming out of your product. So now that they're over that, I think they're finally catching up to speed with a lot of AI features, a lot of things that were very much needed for a very long time. Okay, so once you do grab those, then you'll have access to everything that I'm talking about, but not just have access. I want you to be able to do it and make it useful to you. Okay, so let's go into now the part where now we have all these API keys. We have Anthropic, and Anthropic, I don't have that step built in, but basically you would go to Claude Code and then go into your API dashboard and then create a brand new key. You're going to name it wherever you want it. And then you're going to pull that secret code and save it somewhere safe, because those things, what you're seeing on the screen right now, you will need those keys so that you give your agent the key to the door, right? So that's the path that is necessary for the agent to get into those places. So that means the JSON credentials from Google, Notion secret key and database ID, Anthropic API key, and that's what glues everything together, all of those pieces. So you want to have them, and then you can tell Claude, please create an NV file with these variables, and then you will fill in all the values. And once you do that, you also want to make sure that you test it, right? You tell Claude, please run a quick test that lists all file names in my Drive folder to verify authentication. So like if I were to take this right now and run code here, just to make sure that it has access. Now we know that it has access because that's what it's been doing, but just for the purpose of like kind of understanding what that looks like, it's going to take a second to think about, and it'll basically is going to tell me that it has access to those folders, and that's based on the Google Drive authentication key that I gave it. So it doesn't have access to the drive reader PY. We don't want it to. We just want it to have access to Google Drive. Okay. It's going to think a minute because it will go through a bunch of the tasks. The Google Drive authentication is successful. And then we're going to let it do its thinking. And there we go. It has Google Drive access verified. We have 2 folders, which stores about 34 files. And this is where I keep most of my information as far as contracts, outlines, speaker sheets, whatever, all the information that you need in order to create a new page. Okay, so we know that works. We have that. Let's see, what do we want to do next? In step 8 is the part where we basically instruct Claude Code how to build this agent. This is where you go back to that PRD and then you tell your agent, okay, based on this description and based on this objective, and using all of those keys that I have built, please build the agent, approve the file creation, and then scaffold the whole thing. And that's where we would go and do the folder structure, the script, the Flask app, the HTML interface, the ingestion logic, everything. And it will build one thing after another, step by step. So you don't have to worry about any of those, right? Like that's where I said, you don't actually have to think about what is the structure, what do I need, because you're not probably a development engineer, so you're like, I have no idea where to start. You don't have to. Claude Code knows what it needs in order to create an app. You have to just give it the direction and then give it the keys. So that's where the part where it will all make sense and work is coming up, because once the build is complete, it's basically time to run the agent. And I like to run this agent locally. So like, for example, if I give you this HTTP address, you're not going to be able to open it up on your computer. And that is great, because I don't want you to be able to open it up on your computer. I want this to be my agent on my machine doing its job that I needed to do based on my database, right? So I don't want it to share with the world, because that would prohibit the whole idea of having a personal agent, and also security and privacy things. We got to worry about those as well. So it lives on my machine. That's why, like, when I'm streaming right now, I'm actually streaming from my Mac machine, not my Windows machine, even though I have both of them open at the same time. One is a primary for streaming, the other one is my backup. I always use this workflow anytime I stream anything. But normally it's the primary and the backups are switched, because my Vmix streaming machine is the Windows one, not my Mac. But for anything coding, I usually use my Mac. So that's why I'm kind of like switching roles for this purpose. So we have the app already created. So like if I were to not have it started, which we already have it started here on localhost. You can also give it a different address, like it can be localhost 5000, it can be localhost 3000. It's going to be a localhost. Like, for example, on localhost 5000, I had a different agent that was running, but right now that agent is paused. So it doesn't have connection to it unless I switched into that from my terminal and I fire it up, right? And that was for a different demo. So you have this ready, and then you can do those things both in the terminal, or you can do it in the UI. That's why I like to have the UI interface, because I can run a full workflow in here to make sure that the agent is indeed working and is indeed doing what's supposed to. I can run different things, like one would be indexer, right? What does the indexer do? Is basically going to look at everything that I share with it so far. And the same thing, the same command, I could run it here in the terminal. So this is where you have flexibility. The same thing, I could also run it in Claude Code, right? And I can run it doing the same thing. You have flexibility, and that's what I love about when you build agents. You can be more of a UI, UX person, and then create this workflow for yourself where you just work in the app, or you can be more of a coder, a nerd, and work in the terminal and give it commands. And this command, for example, the indexer, it will fetch all the past talks from my 3 Notion databases, right? I have booked, past, and podcast. It will fetch up to 10 past pages documents from all my Google Drive folders that I share with it. And then it will combine all of those for Claude to analyze. And it will look at recurring themes and expertise areas. It will look at audience outcomes and value propositions. It will generate differentiators and unique angles that I go after. And it will pitch style and tone patterns based on what the CFP is about. And then it will output 5 to 7 insights about my speaking profile and pitch approach. So all of that, it's been doing here. Gonna give it to the indexer code. It's done that. Key insights discovered. Your expertise is AI for events, productivity, wellness for professionals. Your pitch style is data-driven, outcome-focused, practical takeaways. Your unique angle, you blend technical expertise with holistic approach. And then your value proposition is empowers professionals with AI tools and biohacking. So it's done that in the terminal as well. As you can see, the terminal actually, I feel like it's a little bit more comprehensive. Now, why is it a little bit more comprehensive? Because probably I gave it like a character limit for this, and I asked it to be concise, right? So that's why when I go between the two, I usually like to compare the results. So the next thing then you can do is, once you have this information, is run a discovery. Now, what does the discovery do? And the same thing can be done, the discovery here. It will go and scan some of the most common conference websites, like major conferences. You can give a specific conference websites that you wanted to track, or you can just let it go wild and then still give it some boundaries, as in don't just, look for every conference out there, because some of it might be about agriculture that I know nothing about, and I don't care to look into that. Whatever you want it to give it as far as boundaries goes, right? So once it does the search, then it will extract event name, the dates, CFP, URLs. So you don't have to do this search yourself. This is where the time saving comes into play. Like in the past, I used to spend so much time doing this myself or hiring a VA to do it. And many times it would miss things, or it would find things that were just not relevant enough. I've done it all. I know the hard work that it takes to go after these CFPs. Whereas now, a lot of it is done for me, and I just build the rules around it, and I just give it the instruction and the directions. And I also gave it a evaluation score. Like, for example, within the tool, I built a fit score. Like, it has the 0 to 100 fit score based on the topics that I speak on. And then it can create and update entries in my upcoming call for speakers, so that I can go and review just the ones that are within the fit score that I decided that would be a great fit, right? So like when you look at this AI scoring result, that's where 4 conferences are score 75 plus, as in they're really high fit. 8 are somewhat like a medium fit. And then it filter out the low scoring or maybe expired opportunities. That's golden right there. That's information that I can take and I can use and I can work with, right? So that's why this is so important, and it does all the steps for you. The next thing, while the terminal is still running the search, is picture. This is once you have all this done, then I can run this picture, which basically pulling from my past sessions and from all these learning databases that I share with it. It can then find the strongest abstract, and then it can generate a personalized pitch email that I can take and paste it into Gmail. I don't have the integration to Gmail to do it directly right now, but that could be a next step build. And then it can also update the entry in speaking pitch, right? So like when I go back to here, you will update the entry. It takes a second to show this database because it's pretty heavy, but it would go into this other database, which is pitched here. And then it would basically input a bunch of this information and then give it categories and whatever information is generated based on what that is about. So again, something that takes away from you having to do it manually, which I don't know about you, but sounds fantastic to me. And then another command here that I would run is called reporter. And what this does is it will go into my upcoming call for speakers for new upcoming events, and then speaking page for draft status. And then it would create a digest with 3 sections. And that is new opportunities this week, deadlines in the next 30 days, and drafts that I need to pay attention to, I need to send. And this will be sent to me not just here, but also I have it connected to Slack. So I get this report in Slack every week. So it's easy for me to take action and not forget about it. So that's basically the purpose of this agent. And obviously can do a few other things, analyze past pitches, do a deeper analysis on that, but also check all the systems are working. I have all the required configuration done. I have all the features built in, and everything that's supposed to work and be fully operational is working. It's operational. So that's in a nutshell this agent. So let's see, where are we as far as time? And what else do we have to cover here? Okay. So I guess what I wanted to sort of like come back to is the pattern, right? Once you learn this pattern of how to build an AI agent for yourself, your first AI employee, then you start seeing opportunities everywhere. Then you're thinking about client onboarding, or maybe employee onboarding, or about sending RFPs or drafting proposals, about LinkedIn posts, about content repurposing, generating speaker packets for your speakers. Any workflow you repeat more than twice a month can be turned into an agent. And that was just an example, a simple example. And I took it from my life, from my example, just because that has been the most time consuming for me, especially as I've been really pushing in that direction as a professional speaker and setting myself as a AI expert and the go-to person when it comes to technology, updates, AI, workflows, automation, augmentation, all of that. So that is what I wanted to share, because I felt like it was important, especially if you're just delving into wanting to create something but don't have the step. I'm someone that likes to do things myself, and I like to try it and test it, because that gives me the opportunity to, I gotta put myself back on the screen, gives me the opportunity to learn, and gives me opportunity to also trial and error, try things and fail and learn from those mistakes, and then be able to troubleshoot when under pressure or when things go a little wary, right? So that's basically the purpose of this workshop. I hope that you found value. We came to time, and this would be a great time to drop in any of your questions. For example, a few things that I think would be important to highlight is, can you do this with any other LLM? Yes. Wherever where you work, like I showed you, you could do this with Gemini. You could build this same workflow once you have your PRD, and you can deploy it in a completely different environment altogether. You still need a few things to make it happen, a few integrations, but other ways in which you could deploy it beyond running it locally is also, there's options. Like I also use Replit, I use Railway. Those are super simple environments to set up, to push to a repo, to add your environment variables, and then deploy the agent to run on a schedule. You can also use GitHub Actions and Cloud Scheduler, the same thing, to get this workflow built and then set up a trigger where the agent does a daily, weekly set of tasks. So that's kind of how you turn your agent into a hands-free 24/7 employee that moves beyond just something local and more into a server environment. Let's see, what other questions do I normally get? Let me check into the chat here. What are the security best practices for API keys and data? I think a few non-negotiable would be never commit your NV file to GitHub, you want to add it to git ignore so that those API keys are not shared publicly. Never upload your service account key anywhere publicly. Duh. You do need environment variables for everything, and sometimes you need to change those variables. You do want to share all of those keys somewhere secretly and privately where you know where they are. You do want to keep your drive folders restricted to this service account only, which you created. And then do rotate those keys, right? If something feels just something off, like you feel like your API charge is going really high, and you should check on that. You want to be able to rotate those keys, generate new keys. And then if you're using a cloud deployment, use their encrypted secrets manager that's set up so that whatever workflow you build, you also treat it like a production software. Your data is valuable and you want to protect it. Another question that came up was, when should I choose Notion versus Google Sheets? I think a quick rule of thumb here is use Notion. And again, I am a pro Notion person because I've been a user for a few years. But I would use it when you want structure, searchable, taggable records. You want to embed the pitch directly into your workspace. You want to view, filter, Kanban style, have a calendar, an email. You have AI sitting on top of it to do your searches even better. You're basically treating it like a CRM or a pipeline for this one object flow workflow. And then Sheets, obviously, that's super simple. That's simple to use. You don't need a degree to be able to use Google Sheets or spreadsheets. And you want to export it as a CSV file. You're probably more comfortable editing that easier, or maybe you've grown to know the spreadsheet and Excel formulas really well, so that makes sense for you. Or maybe you're just getting started and don't want another tool to pay for something. I think you can use Notion for free. I'm not sure if the integrations really work, that feature. I think you might need a pro account for the features to work. But either or, I mean, all of that works. Airtable works, Asana works. It depends on what your workflow need is, not what I'm saying or what's trendy out there. Another question that I got, and I think this is the last one that we have time for, is how do I decide what to automate next? And I think this is the fun part. And I would ask myself this question: what do I repeat annoyingly often? And I'm pretty sure you can look at your own workflow and answer that honestly for yourself. If you don't, maybe it's time to spend a day where you do your normal work and then you start writing down somewhere, what are the things that I keep repeating? What are the things that I keep doing again today or this entire week, right? Because if you've done a task more than twice this week or this month, it's probably very high chances that you should automate. Some high impact candidates for that could be, if you're an organizer, writing bios, session titles, reformatting things, updating, RFPs, maybe even the event specs that you have to work on. And we all know how time consuming those are. Sorting email inquiries, creating proposals, researching events or clients or websites or competitors, right? Building LinkedIn posts and posting. A lot of you don't like to do that, and then you just don't do it. There's many things that I don't like to do. That doesn't mean that I don't do them. Maybe you have to format a bunch of documents, or maybe you have to summarize a bunch of things into executive summaries, or maybe you have to organize a lot of content and files or build a bunch of reports. any repetition whatsoever, anything that has a friction element to it, or maybe a level of boredom, that's where I think AI really belongs, and that's where you should focus on. Okay, so that comes to that basically brings us to a conclusion here, and we're coming to an end. Thank you for those that join us. If you're watching this on demand, it will be available on my LinkedIn page as well as on my YouTube page. So you can take it in strides if you want to go back to it, or if you want to take this one step and then you have to pause and do it, and then the next step and then you have to pause and do it. And then another thing that I was gonna throw out there, I love to work with people that are just as curious and are interested in building solutions for their business, for their agency, for their workflows. You can find me at Anca Platon Trifan.me. You can see where I speak next, but you can see what I'm doing. And I want you to reach out if you have questions. I want you to be able to feel comfortable to do that. Again, if you've missed the QR code, this is how you get the slides. I'm going to drop it on the screen again, just so that you have it. And it's going to be a whole plethora of research of resources that you can use. And then if you have anything in mind that you would want to build, anything that would be in-person speaking engagements, virtual workshops for leadership or event teams, one-on-one strategic conversations. That's where I spend a lot of my time on, and I would love for us to work together. Things that are really close and dear to my heart are AI strategy and execution, AV production, speaking on AI, speaking on Fit for Events, and podcasting. We just opened a few limited podcast sponsorship opportunities. I'm very, very particular of who I give access to when it comes to my audience and what brand should have access to. So I don't just accept anyone. For 5 years, I refused any sponsorship opportunity because I care so much about my audience and I care for them to get value and not be consistently sold to. So I'm very, very particular about that. Even now, as we're opening those 5 or 6 spots for the year, they're very strategically placed, and we're not going to go more than that. That's kind of the limit, the boundary that I've set with my team when we decided to explore this. And with that, thank you for joining. Please DM me if you found value or if you have questions. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and happy holidays. It's almost Christmas. I can't believe that's the end of the year, but here we are. We are talking AI agents at the end of 2025, and I'm pretty sure we'll be talking more AI agentic work in 2026. So stay connected and Happy New Year.